Gonna be around. If you had $10,000, it'll take 800 years to double that cash to 20,000. That's crazy. So unless you're a vampire, even a vampire won't do that because they know they could get better interest rate elsewhere. And then while they're sleeping in their coffin for 800 years, they're just letting that money grow in their account at 5% or 8% for on stocks or mutual funds. So that just goes to say don't put your money in savings interest account. It's a 0.09%. It's not worth crap. So before we get started, make sure to go over to the subscribe button, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to get any new updates from us. I promise you it'll be a lot of value. You'll learn a lot, you'll get a lot of tips and tricks that you can share with your friends to make you seem all the more smarter. Hey, you're learning how money works with Course Hack. So in the last video, we talked about finding people you trust. Like, say it one more time, that the advisors that you want to work with are people that are willing to educate you for free, not knowing whether you're going to become a client of theirs, because they really just want the best for you to be educated and wise with your personal financial decisions. So find someone that you trust. That's a strategy that's worked well, incredibly well in my life, and I know that it'll work well for you. So moving on from that, so there's another rule of 72 shortcut. The interest rate needed to double your cash based on the number of years left to save. So if you take like 72 divided by years left to save, that'll equal the interest rate you need. That's the formula. So let's say that you have, actually let's take $10,000. Let's take $10,000. You have 20 years to double that money. That's your years left to save. So the interest rate you need is 70 divided by 20. You need a 3.6% interest rate to double your money in 20 years, given it doesn't really matter what amount of money you're investing in. You just need 20 years to double your money, or 3.6% to double your money if you have 20 years left to save. So that's a really nifty interest rate formula. So if you have 12 years left to save, then you need a 6% interest rate. And our calculator here has pretty much what you need. We have the rule of 72. So the yellow here is things you don't change. This is the result. So all this green is the stuff you change. So rule of 72, if I tried to make it like if the interest rate was 6, then it'll take 12 years to double. So stuff like that. The interest rate needed is pretty much what we're doing. Again, don't change the yellow, change the green. If you have 20 years to save, it'll take 3.6%, like we said. If you have, let's say, 15 years to save, then it'll take 4.8% to double your cash. So pretty nifty calculator tool there. So years needed to double your cash with savings account. You see that, right? I'm sure you see it. You're looking at it. Savings account interest is 0.09%. We checked that in the last video. It takes 800 years to double that money, you know? So you're not gonna be around. If you had $10,000, it'll take 800 years to double that cash to 20,000. That's crazy. So unless you're a vampire, even a vampire won't do that because they know they could get better interest rate elsewhere. And then while they're sleeping in their coffin for 800 years, they're just letting that money grow in their account at 5% or 8% for on stocks or mutual funds. So that just goes to say don't put your money in savings interest account. It's a 0.09%. It's not worth crap. So I'm not even gonna say anything more about that. So the first step, we're gonna go through our 7-step series now. That's really just the rest of the series, and they're really strategies for you to implement because you need to implement these in order to know what choices to make that would be good for you and your family, right? And these are steps that I was never taught in school, and You were never taught in school, otherwise you probably wouldn't be watching this video. So the first step is just to get educated, which is what you're doing right now. And the first step and the story time is to find a financial advisor you trust. Like I said, my advisor never charged me consulting fees. I actually gave him my money, and because it's a story that I've told already, I'm gonna make it short. I moved to the States in 2016 because I found a job here as a software engineer, and because I actually moved here not knowing anybody, and because I'm a dancer as well, we go out to parties and dance nights, and that's when I met my advisor Tayuk, and he asked me what I did, and I thought I was a software engineer, and I didn't ask him what he did because I was selfish, but I noticed he was a good dancer. He was kind-hearted enough to host me for a night. This is the first time we ever met. The first time we ever met, because I went with my friend from Birmingham. We drove over to Atlanta, Georgia, and because I'm living in Birmingham, Alabama, and my friend already knew him. So we went over to Atlanta for a dance night, and I didn't know he was a financial advisor at the time. So I just knew that he was a dancer as well. We danced salsa and bachata, so if you do any of that, let me know, hit me up. But he danced salsa and bachata, and I did too at that point. And we went and danced together for a Friday or a Saturday night, I forgot which one. But it was too late to drive back home, so he was like, why don't you just come stay over at my house? Because he lives alone in a gigantic house with 5 rooms. So we did that. Next morning we had breakfast, and I asked him what do you do, and he's like, oh, I teach people about money. So he didn't even say that he was a financial advisor. He just told me that he educated people about money. So by that point I knew he was a financial advisor, because my financial advisor in Canada also did the same thing. He told me that when I first met him, that he educated people on money, and at some point I started investing with them, and he became my financial advisor. So at first I was pretty hesitant on continuing relationships with him, but I found myself going back to Atlanta for dances every now and then, and he always offered his room up, not as like trying to sell me any financial advice, because like at that point we didn't even talk about finances or anything like that. We just talked about dance. So we talked about dance. That was our commonality, and he just was a dancer supporting another dancer, hosting another dancer, an out of town dancer, which is what a lot of dancers do. And by then, after having so many brunches, lunches, and breakfasts together, he started educating me about personal finance, and I really learned from this. At this point, I've learned the most about personal finance from him, and I learned about emergency funds. He started teaching me about emergency funds, about life insurance, about universal life, term life, whole life, all that kind of stuff, about mutual funds, interest rate, what kind of products there were, and all that at the same time. He was just telling me this stuff, and he never asked me, oh, you should invest with me, or you should invest in that with me. He never tried to sell me on any investment products or financial products. So he just kept educating me, which is what I'm doing with you right now. And the thing is that we knew each other directly, but right now I'm speaking to a camera, so I know you're watching, but we're not even gonna be able to make that connection, but you're learning at least. So he and I started learning from him, and I learned from him until at some point I was like, he kept on telling me these financial products and how much return that I can get, like a 5 or 8% return, and he started giving me benchmarks that like an 8% is a really, really good return on on mutual funds or something like that. And I thought, whoa, really? How can I get into that? So I was at that point making quite a bit of money as a software engineer, because I started getting paid when I moved here at like $75,000. So I didn't know where that money was gonna go. I didn't want to. I need to get my investing, my saving strategy straight. So I went to him, was like, I'm making a lot of money, and I need to know where to invest it and saving, because I want to save and be sure that I'll be okay in my retirement. Because I know and you know that the government won't take care of you with the debt that the US have right now, and the pension and everything. There's no way that they're going to be able to support everybody in retirement. So all this responsibility really falls on me. It really falls on you. So I asked him how much, where can I actually, where I asked him where can I invest this money, and he started just giving me some products. And literally I looked at the products and read the fine print and was like surprised, like, whoa, I need to start doing this. So I just like, Tayu, how can I start doing this? And then he just gave me all the instructions of how to start doing this, gave me some forms. He walked me through it to make sure that I understood everything correctly. And then we proceeded that way. And that's how I got started investing with him. And that ever since then, it's been 4 years. It's been a rocking 4 years, and all my investments have been doing great. So that's my story. My advisor never charged me consulting fees. They were just time invested in educating me to make sure, as a friend, that I was making the right choices. And at the end of it, I gave him my money, I gave him my business, and it's history ever since then. So that's the first step that you got to do. You got to find a financial advisor that you trust, and that's all that really matters. So the second step is protection. So if you drive, and I drive, so if you're living in the States, you probably drive, because other than the big cities, buses and trains and metros are really unreliable. So you have to drive. But as you've noticed, every single car that someone is driving requires what? It requires protection, it requires insurance. So we insure our cars. And similarly with houses, just in case we live in a spot where there's a lot of tornadoes or a lot of floods, of course we're gonna buy home insurance, because if something happens, just that insurance gives us a peace of mind that if something happens, if our house catches on fire and it burns down, then we don't lose everything. The insurance will pay for that. So the second step is protection. We buy insurance for our cars, we buy insurance for our houses, but when it comes to buying insurance for us, people kind of cringe. That's how I feel. That's how I felt before too. When someone tried to sell me life insurance, I kind of cringed, because I was like, why do I need this? I'm fine and I'm healthy now. There's no problems. I'm young. But this is the time that's most important, because I'm doing this at a time when the coronavirus pandemic is running rampant, and people who are not healthy, who are ending up in the hospital, they're gonna have to pay. And if you haven't watched one of my previous videos in this series of how I ended up in the ER for 4 hours, and that costed me a good $7,000, that's what people are facing now. ER for 4 hours, $11,000. So life insurance, it's not insurance that if you die, that's the only way you get money. Of course you're paying for premiums in order so that when you die, you leave cash, you leave some money for your family and your loved ones. But there is also some other things about it which we'll get into, that will allow you to benefit from that, the premiums that you're investing in as you go along life. So it's something that you really shouldn't cringe, but really should. I feel like I really suggest that people look at it as with curiosity, because like I said, we buy insurance for our cars, we buy insurance for our houses, but we never buy insurance for us. And we're not invincible. We get sick. Like, you get cancer and you can end up in the hospital, or you could get dementia and you need people to take care of you, and that all costs money. And that's the protection that I'm talking about, because those are all things that could happen, and it is happening to people right this minute. So that's something that I really want to talk about, but I've been rambling for too long, so I'm gonna leave our video here. If you haven't joined our newsletter already, then check out the description below and join our newsletter to get some tips and tricks and some awesome calculators with planning your financial strategies. And if you haven't already, please rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.